Hi guys, welcome to the new tutorial about Azure containers. So today I'm going to discuss all about its configurations and the functionality of Azure container instance. So I will just directly go to Azure container deployment in the Azure portal, and then we can see its deployment over there. So just search container in the search bar, and we can click on the container instances, then create the container, and we can choose or create a new resource group. We can create a resource group called container, and name of the container we can say container test, and we can deploy it UK West. But here we can see there is no availability zone, so we can see some other place like West Japan also does not, US East. Some places have like availability zone, like I mentioned in previous videos as well. So it depends on our requirement if we want the availability zone or not. But if you are doing in a production environment, then you must need the availability zone to copy your data. And here we can select the image, so I could just go with the quick start image, and in this one we can also change the image. That one was the image source, and this one is just image. So what kind of image, like Linux or Linux version, like what it will show for the default one on the container. So we will see the hello world after the container will be available. So we just go with the Linux one and use the default size, then go to that networking we can select should we make it public or private. So depending on our requirement, like how we can choose that, and we can just then select the DNS label. So for DNS label we can use container, and the full DNS will be container north central US after it will create. And we can also use the ports as well here, so we can use port 8080 and select the protocol and any other port just according to your requirement. So we just go with the next option. Here we can select any like restart policy, like which time it will restart the container, like if it fails or something happens then it restarts it, or always restart or never. So depending upon the requirement of your environment. And also the tags, we just go with the default, then review and create. So as we all know, like virtual machines and the difference between containers, so it's a like faster than virtual machines. So people use for the websites or their deployment, which is very good for production environment. So it takes like very quick time, like to create this container instance, not like virtual machines, because virtual machines need to pass a lot of things inside or while we create a virtual machine. But container, it takes a bit uh, faster time than the virtual machine deployment. So let's see, wait for its deployment, and then we can go further after it. So the resource has been deployed, so we just go to resource, which is our container test, and here we can see we have a container with the public IP address 20.80.23.76, and the OS type is Linux, and this is the FQDN. We can use NS lookup to translate, and it will give us this IP address. And also we can just copy this one and open a new tab over here and put this FQDN, and it will show us the default welcome page. So that means we are successfully deployed the container and its running state, and it's also showing here running state, and that's the public IP address. So we can use this container instance, and after a few seconds it will show the CPU and memory. And also there are some logs. If we go to containers under the settings, and here we can see the logs or events over here, but it displays after like few minutes, because we just enabled, or we can say we just created this container. And logs you can see here, like port 80 someone is using, like I was using this to browse that. And in the meantime, let's see the ns lookup result for the FQDN by going to command prompt. And I just go to command prompt and use ns lookup and paste the URL, and it gives the same public IP address which is over here. And we can also see if we can find it out by with the public IP called 20.80.23.76. Not like this way, because this is not a proper binding. So we can just go with the like FQDN, and FQDN is already registered with the IP address which is giving us. So that means it's fine, there is no issue with that. And let's restart, refresh the page to see some settings of CPU and memory. It give us some details regarding to our container health and monitoring. So it's loading right now. Let's see again and generate a couple of logs, and we can see later in the containers logs. See, we can browse, and it is showing the logs that someone is hitting this container. Like right now there are like 1 2 3 4 5, and if we go like couple of more times we can see more logs. Refresh. See, we can see that more logs already generated. And in the events, events takes a bit time, so it's not updated yet. And we can see the properties like which SKU, what's the memory of this container, something like that. And go to overview to see CPU. So we can see it's already up a couple of minutes ago, and the memory is using the network in and out kind of things, transmitting and receiving. We can see here when we do it, it says 96 bytes, and under the network bytes received. And go here to see the bytes, the peak bytes. Also the CPU peak is like 0.5, not much, because it's just simply running this image which is the welcome to container instance. So this is a small kind of tutorial about introduction of container and deployment, because in Azure administrator course there is not a like deep deployment. So just to be familiar with the container instances and things. So this is all about the container. We cannot do like run our own website or do things in this tutorial because it's out of the scope of Az-104 course. So I will come with the next tutorial in the next video. So till then, have a good time. Bye bye.